Good morning. Or good afternoon, Mr. Adams. Good afternoon. Mr. Adams, how old are you? 33. Where were you born? In New York. Can you speak into the microphone? New York. Where in New York? Manhattan. Where did you grow up? In the Lower East Side and in Harlem. How far did you go in school? GED. Where do you currently live? In Queens. Where in Queens? GEO Correctional Facility. Is that a federal prison? Yes. Approximately how long have you lived in federal prison? 44 months. When were you first arrested? July 9th, 2015. What were you arrested for? Robbery and a murder. Have you pled guilty to any federal crimes? Yes. What federal crimes have you pled guilty to? Robbery, conspiracy to commit robbery, murder, racketeering, drugs, and an attempted murder. Did you plead guilty to firearms offenses as well? Yes. Have you been sentenced yet? No. What is the maximum sentence you are facing on those charges? Life. Why are you testifying here today? Because I don't want to do life. Are you testifying here today pursuant to a cooperation agreement? Yes. What are your duties under the cooperation agreement? To tell the truth, meet with the government when they want to meet, forfeit all the things I may have gotten from the crimes I did, and commit no further crimes. I want to come back to this a little bit later, your cooperation agreement. Mr. Adams, you testified that you pled guilty to racketeering conspiracy, correct? Yes. What was that plea for? For being a member of the Bloodhound Brims. What is the Bloodhound Brims? A gang, a blood gang. How long were you a member of the Bloodhound Brims? From when it started, all the way to 2016. When did they start? 2005. Looking around the courtroom today, do you recognize any other members of the Bloodhound Brims? Yes. Who do you see? I see Latique Johnson, I see Don P., and I see Light. Let's go one by one. Can you please describe where Latique Johnson is sitting and what he's wearing? He's sitting all the way to the left with a blue-collar shirt on. Do you know Latique Johnson by any other name? Yes. What name? La Brim, straight to business, breezy. May the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Latique Johnson. The record will so reflect. Can you describe where Don P. is sitting and what he's wearing? Sitting right next to him with glasses on, bald head. Let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Donnell Murray. The record will so reflect. Can you please describe where Light is sitting and what he is wearing? He's sitting at the end with glasses on, blue-collar shirt on, and tie. Let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Brandon Green. The record will so reflect. Mr. Adams, before you became a member of the Bloodhound Brims, were you a member of any other gangs? Yeah, I was a 5'9" Brim. I'm sorry? I was 5'9" Brim, and I was LNW. What is LNW? It was a street gang in Harlem. What does that stand for? Lords never worry. What type of gang is 5'9" Brim? That's a Brim set. It's blood. How long were you a member of 5'9" Brim? About 2 to 3 years approximately. After you were 5'9" Brim, what gang were you a member of? Bloodhound Brim. Where were you living at the time you became a member of the Bloodhound Brims? I was in Comstock Correctional Facility. What kind of correctional facility is that? A New York State Correctional Facility. What crime were you in state prison for at that time? Robbery. How long did you serve in state prison for that particular robbery? 8 years. What years was that? From 2003 all the way to 2011. Can you remind the jury approximately when you became a member of the Bloodhound Brims? 2005. How did you first learn about Bloodhound Brims? I learned about it through a kite from Latique Johnson to Geronimo. Who is Geronimo? Geronimo is the co-founder of the Bloodhound Brim. What's a kite? A letter. How did you come to read the kite? Well, he brought it to the yard. Who brought it to the yard? Geronimo. What yard are you talking about? Comstock's yard. Who was the kite from? It was from La. How did you know the kite was from La Brim? He signed it at the bottom, and Geronimo said it was from La. How did La Brim sign the letter? Breezy. Was Breezy a name that you were familiar with at the time? Yes. How? That's his AKA. At the time that Geronimo showed you the kite, had you ever met La Brim in person? No. At the time that you saw that letter, did you know who La Brim was? Yes. How did you know? Because I was 5'9" Brim, and he was the 5-star general for 5'9" Brim. What is a 5-star general? It's a high-ranking member. What was your position in 5'9" Brim at the time? I had no position. I was a soldier. Had you ever communicated with La Brim before you received or saw this kite? Yeah, I sent him letters before. Sent who letters before? La. What had you communicated about? Just staying in communication. Like I say, he was a 5-star general for the 5'9" Brim. What kinds of communications? Who was on the lineup? What was going on with 5'9" Brim? And you're saying lineup. What was a lineup? It's a chain of command. What did the letter say that Geronimo showed you from La Brim? The letter just said that he was starting BHB, and he was looking for shooters. BHB, is that the Bloodhound Brims? Correct. What is a shooter? Person that takes scalpels and cut people. It's another word for someone who put work in. What does it mean to put work in? To cut, beat people up, do whatever you gotta do to further yourself in the game. As a result of this letter, what did you decide to do? I decided to join Bloodhound Brims. Why did you decide to leave 5'9" Brim and become a Bloodhound Brim? Because at the time we called La the poster child for 5'9" Brim. And if he wasn't 5'9" Brim, it wasn't cool to be 5'9" Brim. And at the time that you joined Bloodhound Brims in 2005, to your knowledge, approximately how many people were in the gang? Approximately 13 to 15 people. When you were arrested by the federal authorities in July 2015, to your knowledge, how many people were in the gang? Well, 16 pedigrees was an average of 30 people in each pedigree. What is a pedigree? It's a different chapter of the Bloodhound Brims. Were you in a pedigree? Yes. What pedigree? The Greyhound. Why were you in the Greyhound pedigree? Because I'm from Harlem. Were pedigrees based on locations? Yes. Can you give some examples of pedigrees in corresponding locations? You got the Bassett, Long Island, Beagle, Queens, 220s, Bronx, the Greyhound, which is Harlem, Out of Bounds, which is PA. It's a bunch. It's 16. You say PA. What is PA? Pennsylvania. Are those all the pedigrees? No. Do you recall testifying that when you joined the gang, you were in Comstock State Prison? Correct. Were there other New York State prisons that you lived in during your years that you were incarcerated? Yes. What were some of the prisons where you were housed? Auburn, 5 Points, Elmira, Riverview, Mohawk, Marcy, a bunch more. Based on your experience during your time as a member of the Bloodhound Brims, where in the New York prison system did BHB operate? Everywhere. Did BHB eventually operate outside prison as well? Yes. Where geographically did the gang operate outside of prison? 5 boroughs, upstate New York, Pennsylvania, a couple places. Did there come a time when you met La Brim in person? Yes. When was that? Auburn Correctional Facility, 2007. How long were you and La Brim in Auburn State Prison together? Approximately 3 months. I want to show you what's been marked Government Exhibit 1. Do you recognize this exhibit? Yeah. How do you recognize it? That's La. The government offers Government Exhibit 1. No objection. And government offers Government Exhibits 1A and 1C, which are nameplates. Is there any objection? No. No objection. All right. Government Exhibits 1, 1A, and 1C are received. Your Honor, if it's all right, Ms. Nichols will assist me with the faceboard so we don't waste time walking back and forth. That's fine. Go ahead, Ms. Nichols. Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, may we publish Exhibit 1? Of course. Mr. Adams, did Brim have any particular position or rank in the gang? Yes. What was that position? He is the godfather. How long was Brim the godfather? Ever since Bloodhound Brim started. Were there other? What was the godfather? It's the highest rank you could go in the chain of command. Were there other ranks, leadership positions in the gang, besides that of a godfather? Yes. What were they? The high O20, low O20, 5-star general, 4-star general, 3-star general, 2-star general, and 1-star general. And of the positions just listed, which is the highest? The godfather. And which is the next highest? The high O20. And after that, the low O20. Could you just go down the chain of command? 5-star general, 4-star general, 3-star general, 2-star general, and 1-star general. What sorts of decisions did the godfather make? The lingo we speak. He decides who goes on the chain of command. He decides the everyday agenda, what's going on with the gang, who's a plate, who's not a plate. What is a plate? Someone who's exiled. I'm sorry? Someone who's exiled. X'd out? Exiled. Exiled, I believe, Your Honor. Oh, exiled. Does that mean no longer a member of the gang? Yes. I'm sorry. I think you were listing things that the godfather decides. Do you want to keep going with that list? Kitty dues, anything that has to do with the gang. Okay, what is a kitty due? It's membership fees. Who pays the membership fees? Everyone. Who do the membership fees go to? To the godfather. Where would gang members typically get that money from? From whatever they were doing, whether they were working, selling drugs, robbing, whatever they were doing. What did the gang use the kitty dues for? Drugs, gun, parties, whatever they seem fit to. You testified the godfather decides the lingo. Yes. Can you explain what you meant by that? It's the way we speak so no one else can understand what we're talking about. It's codes. Who would you be worried about knowing what you were talking about? Rival gang members? Authorities? What kinds of activities could lead someone to be labeled as a plate? Fumbling the plate, not following orders, not paying your kitty dues continuously. What would happen if someone was a plate? What would happen to that person or could happen to that person? They'd get shot. What does that mean? It depends on where we're at. If we're in jail, get cut. In the street, you get shot. You mentioned fumbling a plate. What is fumbling a plate? You get ordered to do something and you don't do it. What is the something that you're talking about? Take a plate. What is taking a plate? Cutting somebody, shooting somebody, doing what you're told to do. When you first joined the Bloodhound Brims, did you have a position or a rank in the gang? No. What is that called when you don't have a position? A soldier. Did you eventually have other positions in the gang? Yes. What positions? 1-star general, 2-star general, 3-star general, the low O20, and high O20. Were you the high O20 of the whole gang? No, I was the high O20, Greyhound. What is the Greyhound again? It's the Harlem set. So did each pedigree have its own leadership positions? Yes. Who would decide who had rank in the gang? Godfather. Who made you the high O20? Godfather. La. In general, how did people get leadership positions in the Bloodhound Brims? By putting in work. And again, what does that mean? To put in work. Causing harm to other people. Selling drugs. Whatever you had to do to further your position. How did you move from being a soldier to eventually being the high old 20 of the Greyhound pedigree? By taking a plate and never fumbling the plate. To be clear, were gang members in prison allowed to have rank in the gang? Yes. When the Godfather was in prison, who would lead the gang? The acting GF. If the Godfather is in prison and there's an acting GF, what is the division of responsibility between the two? It's the same. The acting GF just takes orders straight from the Godfather. Do women have any leadership positions in the gang? Yes. What position? GM, the godmother. What does the godmother do? She's basically the only one who's in touch with all of the pedigrees. She goes from pedigree to pedigree. She communicates the powwows, where they're going to be at. She goes to see the Godfather. You mentioned the word powwow. What is a powwow? It's a meeting. A meeting of who? Amongst us. Who can bring new members into the gang? Anybody who's on the lineup, except for the 1-star. How did new members join the gang? By putting in work. Who did you bring into the gang? Couple drops. I have a couple people. You said the word drops. What's a drop? That's what you call somebody that you bring in. Who did you bring into the gang? Can you give us some examples? Just style Hound, my little brother. Couple people. When you say a couple people, do you mean 2 or do you mean a few? A few. I want to show you what's been marked Government Exhibit 901. Do you recognize this exhibit? Yes. Have you seen this exhibit before? Yes. What is it? It's the structure, the chain of command. Did you help create this exhibit? Yes. Have you reviewed the content of this exhibit for accuracy? Yes. Is the content of this exhibit accurate based on your knowledge of what the chain of command of the Bloodhound Brims was? Yes. The government offers 901. Is there any objection? No, no objection. Government Exhibit 901 is received. Miss Harney, can we please publish Exhibit 901? Going through this chart, Mr. Adams, again, what is the highest ranking position in the gang? The GF. And on the bottom row, what is the order of the chain of command? You said on the bottom row? Yeah, the bottom row. The 5-star general, 4-star general, 3-star general, 2-star general, 1-star general. How many highs and lows were there in each pedigree? 2. I want to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 2. Do you recognize this exhibit? Yes. How do you recognize it? That's light. Government offers Exhibit 2. Any objection? No objection. No. The Government Exhibit 2 is received. Mr. Adams, did you know what Light's real name was? Yes. What is that? Brandon Green. Government offers Exhibit 2A and 2B, which are nameplates. Any objection? No. No objection. Government Exhibits 2A and 2B are received. When did you first meet Light? In 2011 when I came home from state prison. Where were you when you met Light? In Honeywell Plaza. What is Honeywell Plaza? That's where he lives. It's in the Bronx. How were you introduced to Light? La introduced me to him. How did Brim introduce you to Light? He said, "This is the Hound, Light." How did you know that Light was a member of the Bloodhound Brims? When I was introduced to him and when I was in prison, he was like his name was on paperwork. It's like the 4-star. Objection. Sorry? If I could have a minute, Your Honor. No objection. All right. Go ahead. All right. You mentioned that Light's name was on paperwork. Is that correct? Yes. When you say paperwork, what do you mean? Lineups. When you're in prison, the lineup stuff, all of that stuff goes on paperwork. Is it written or typed? It's written in prison. In the street, typed. What would typically be written on paperwork? The lingo we speak, the lineups, the oaths. What happened when you first met Light? They was doing a video in his building. We talked for a little while. I told him that I had just came home. He gave me a gun and he gave me some drugs. Who gave you a gun and drugs? Light. What did the gun look like? It's a little black gun. It was a handgun. What drugs did Light give you? Cocaine. How much? About 60 grams. Why did Light give you a gun and drugs? Because I just came home, and Light told him I was messed up. What did you do with the gun? I held it for a couple weeks, 2 weeks, and Light came and got it back. What did you do with the cocaine? I gave it to another hound named Dilly. What did Dilly do with it? He sold it. Every couple weeks he would give me some money. During the time that you were a member of the Bloodhound Brims, what positions did Light have in the gang? The high O20, low O20, and at one point in time he was the acting GF. When was Light the acting GF? Around 2011. When he was the high O20, was that of the whole gang or of a pedigree? A pedigree. Which pedigree? The 220. What is the 220s? Bronx pedigree. Now, apart from those positions you just mentioned, what role did Light have in the gang? We used to call Light the plug. What does that mean? He had all the drugs. How do you know that? I dealt with him on numerous times, third party. Like I say, he gave me drugs when I first came home, and he used to give us drugs to go to Elmira with. I want to show you what's been marked Government Exhibit 712A. Do you recognize this? Yes. How do you recognize it? It's Light, La, and Meth. Government offers 712A. No objection. No objection. 712A is received. Miss Harney, can we publish 712A? Can you identify for the jury who it is you recognize in this photograph? Light, Meth, and La. Which one is Light? Light is the second to the left. Meth is in the middle of La and Light. Which one is La? All the way to the right. Who is Meth? Meth was the GM. I want to show you what's been marked Government Exhibit 712D. Do you recognize this? Yes. How? It's Light, La, and 2 Fly Tay. Government offers 712D. No objection. No objection. 712D is received. Miss Harney, can we publish 712D? Can you describe for the jury where is Light in this photograph? Light is all the way to the left. Where is La? He's the third person to the left. And who is 2 Fly Tay? Tay was a hound. And which one is he in this photograph? All the way to the right. What positions did 2 Fly Tay have in the gang? 2 Fly was the high for the 220. I want to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 3. Do you recognize this exhibit? Yes. How? It's Don P. Do you know Don P's real name? No. Government offers Government Exhibit 3. Any objection? No objection. Government Exhibit 3 is received. We also offer Exhibit 3A and 3B, which are nameplates. Any objection? No objection. No. 3A and 3B are received. When did you first meet Don P? In 2011, in Allerton Park at a powwow. What is Allerton Park? It's a park in the Bronx. Again, what is a powwow? A meeting. Did you speak with Don P during that powwow? Yes. What did you speak about? I first met him. We had a couple of words with each other. And he told me if I had problems in the Greyhound, that he would send people up to the Greyhound. And if he had problems in 220, for me to send people up there. And again, the Greyhound, what is that? Harlem. What is 220? Bronx. When Don P said if you had problems in the Greyhound, he would send people, what problems did you understand he was talking about? I mean, beef with anybody. Any type of beef. What do you mean by beef? Judge, I would object. It seems speculative at this point. Overruled. Have you heard the term beef before? Say that again. Have you heard the term beef before? Yeah. What does it mean to you? It's like arguments, disputes. At the time you first met Don P, what was his position in the Bloodhound Brims? Don P was the high. Of what? Of the 220s. During your whole time in the Bloodhound Brims, what positions did Don P have in the gang? the acting GF, and he had no positions at one point in time. As the acting GF, what role did Don P have in the gang? He basically do the same things Law did, but he had to go through Law first. Approximately when was Don P the acting GF? Right before Law came home in 2011. Apart from Law Brim, Light, and Don P, during the time that you were a member of the Bloodhound Brims, who were some of the people who had leadership positions in the gang? Showtime, 10,000, O-Dog, Top Dollar, Meth, Gestal, a lot of people. Is that an exhaustive list you just offered? No. I'd like to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 4. Do you recognize this? Yes. How? That's me. Government offers Government Exhibit 4 and 4A. Mr. Adams, what is your nickname? Measy. Government offers 4B as well. Government Exhibit 4, 4A, and 4B received. Can we please publish Exhibit 4? I'd like to show you what's marked as Government Exhibit 15. Do you recognize this? Yes. How? It's O-Dog. What was O-Dog's relationship with BHB? He was the high O20 of the Greyhound. What's O-Dog's real name? Saeed Kaid. Government offers 15, 15A, and 15B. No objection. Government exhibits 15, 15A, and 15B received. Can we please publish? Thank you. I'd like to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 6. Do you recognize this? Yes. How do you recognize it? That's 10,000. What was 10,000's position? 10,000 was the acting GF around 2010. Acting GF of what? Bloodhound Brims. The whole organization? The government offers Exhibit 6 and 6C. No objection. Government Exhibit 6 and 6C are received. I'd like to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 14. Do you recognize this exhibit? Yes. Who's in this exhibit? That's Puff. Who is Puff? Puff was acting member of the Bloodhound Brims as well. Who is Puff close with in the Bloodhound Brims? Light. The government offers Government Exhibit 14 and 14B. No objection. When you say he was an acting member, what does that mean, an acting member? He was active. He is a member. Okay. I believe he said active, I think. Is that correct? Yeah. Any objection to 14 and 14B? No. No objection. 14 and 14B are received. I'd like to show you what's been marked Government Exhibit 11. Do you recognize this photo? Yes. What is that? That's Meth. What was Meth's role in the gang? Meth was the GM. When did Meth become the GM of the gang? When I caught a violation in 2012 and I came home, she was the GM. When you say caught a violation, what do you mean? I got violated for parole. How many times have you spoken with Meth? Numerous of times. Government offers Governments 11 and 11B. No objection. No objection, Your Honor. Government Exhibit 11, 11B received. When you were a member of the gang, when you were a member of the gang, who were the godmothers of the Bloodhound Brims? Well, you had Nikki and Kickdoor, and you had Meth. Could you say those names again? Nikki. Nikki? Yes. And Kickdoor? Yes. Your Honor, my colleague just passed me a note indicating that it is 1:30. I'm happy to keep going if the court wishes. Does anyone need a break right now, or can we push through? Great. Please go ahead. I'd like to show you Government Exhibit, what's marked as Government Exhibit 8. Do you recognize this? Yes. How do you recognize it? That's Top Dollar. Who is Top Dollar? Top Dollar he was like the old 20 for the Greyhound. The government offers Government Exhibit 8 and 8B. Any objection? No objection. No objection. Government Exhibit 8 and 8B are received. I'd like to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 17. Do you recognize this photo? Yes. How do you recognize it? That's BX. Who is BX? Here's another little old 20 for the Greyhound. Who brought BX into the gang? Just The government offers Government Exhibit 17 and 17B. No objection. No objection. 17 and 17B are received. I'd like to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 18. Do you recognize this photo? Yes. Who is it? That's my little brother. What's his name? Holiday. What's his real name? Stephen Adams. Who brought Stephen Adams into the gang? I did. What was his rank in the gang? Like the 3 stars. Of what? Greyhounds. The government offers Exhibit 18, 18A, and 18B. No objection. No objection. Government Exhibits 18, 18A, and 18B are received. Your Honor, it's actually 18E and not 18E. All right, 18E, received. I'd like to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 30. Do you recognize this photo? Yes. How do you recognize it? That's Geronimo. Is that the same Geronimo as the one you testified about earlier? Yes. The government offers Exhibit 30, Government's 30, and 30B. Any objection? No objection. No objection. Government Exhibits 30 and 30B are received. I'd like to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 43. Do you recognize this photo? Yes. How do you recognize it? That's Nikki. What was Nikki's role in the gang? The GM. Government offers Government 43 and 43B. Any objection? No, Your Honor. No objection. Mr. Adams, are you aware of any other names for the Bloodhound Brims gang? Yes. What names? Jet, G5, or BHB? Why was the gang called the Jet? It's another way to say it without saying it. What is a G5? That's the jet. It's a Learjet, lavish jet. Do you recall testifying about the lingo or the codes that the gang used? Yes. How did members of the gang learn the codes? They would study it, or I guess some people learned it by just using it. And how would members of the gang receive the new codes to study them? In jail, we would copy it, pass it along. In the streets, we used to copy it in the dental office. What dental office is that? A dentist office on the Grand Concourse. How do you have access to a dental office? BX used to work there. Did the codes ever change? Yes. Approximately how frequently? Probably every couple of months or whenever somebody would get caught with them. What was the purpose of the codes? To speak to no one else. Objection, Your Honor. Sustained. Why did you use the codes? So no one else could know what we were talking about when we were speaking amongst each other. When did you... Sorry, strike that. When you became a member of the Bloodhound Brims, did you have to make any kind of pledge or oath? Yes, it was an oath. Do you remember the oath? Some of it, probably. Can you recite what you remember? The love of my life is the love of my hood. For the growth and development of my hood, I do everything I could. Bloodhound Brim's main focus is the money and the betterment of the hood. Lavishment is our due, and we taking no prisoners. Whether life or death, I solemnly swear to bust my gun. We ride to the death. We fight to the death. We give money to the death. The only way out of the hood is if it's granted by the hood. Dead game. You said the word dead game at the end of that. What is dead game? It's the way we salute each other. What does dead game mean? It's a salute. And I believe you said something about busting my gun? Yes. What does that mean? In jail, cutting someone. In the street, exactly what it is. Busting your gun. Were there any rules that you had to follow as a member of the Bloodhound Brims? Yes. What rules? You had the 10 Hound Commandments. I'm sorry? We had the 10 Hound Commandments. Do you remember the 10 Hound Commandments? Not all of them. Can you recite what you remember? No secrecy, no success. No rats. No. Hound business is hound business. No backbiting a hound. It's a lot. You said no rats. What does that mean? No cooperator. You said no backbiting a hound. What does that mean? No talking about another hound to someone else. What about no secrecy, no success? Exactly what it says. No secrecy is no success. What would happen if you violated one of the hound commandments? You could become a plate. Did members of the gang use any kind of hand signal? Yes. Can you demonstrate that? Do like this. I'm going to describe it for the record. Do you mind holding it up again? So Mr. Adams has his pinkies together. His hands are in fists. His thumbs and his first fingers are pointed out, and the hands are together. All right. I'd like to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 708F. Do you recognize this photo? How? How? It's Don P. The government offers Government Exhibit 708F. No objection. No objection. 708F is received. Miss Harney, can we publish 708F? Mr. Adams, can you describe who is in this photograph again? That's Don P. Which individual? Don P. Which individual in the photograph? The one throwing up the hand sign. What is Don P doing with his hands? He throwing up the Brim sign. And what does that mean again? The Brim sign. What does a Brim sign mean? It's just another way to recognize a Brim. I want to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 170. Miss Harney, if we could flip through this exhibit for the witness. Mr. Adams, if I could just go back for 1 second. Who is allowed to throw up a Brim sign? Anyone who's Brim. And looking at this exhibit, do you recognize this exhibit, Exhibit 170? Yes. How do you recognize it? It's a letter that Mitch gave me. And the whole exhibit, how do you recognize the whole exhibit? It was codes. Where did you first see these codes? In MDC, Brooklyn. Who is Mitch? Mitch was a hound. And what is MDC, Brooklyn? Federal Penitentiary. And when did you see these codes and the letter? When I was in MDC, Brooklyn in 2016. How did you come to see these codes and the letter? He brought it to me. Who did? Mitch. To be clear, did you write this paperwork? No. Is that your handwriting? No. What did you do with it? I gave it to my lawyer. Do you know what your lawyer did with it? Gave it to the government. The government offers Government Exhibit 170. 1 moment, Your Honor. No objection, Your Honor. No objection, Your Honor. No objection. Government Exhibit 170 is received. Miss Harney, can we publish page 11 for the jury? Mr. Adams, have you seen paperwork like this before? Yes. When? In jail. Some of it is from when we made copies of it. Looking at page 11 here. Miss Harney, can you focus in on the first paragraph? Do you see at the end of the first paragraph where it says hunter, observation, underground, noiseless, dead game? What is that? That's hound. What do you mean by that's hound? It's the breakdown. That's how you spell it. And if we can look at the second paragraph on the page. Mr. Adams, can you read that into the record? The love of my life is the love of my hood. For the growth and development of my hood, I do what I could. No secrecy, no success. Death to all those who go against the set. Bloodhound Brim main focus is money. Betterment of our hood. Our lavish is due. We take no prisoners. We got a job to do. Whether life or death, I solemnly swear to bust my gun. I solemnly swear to never hide or run. We dead game. We fight to the death. We ride to the death. We get money to the death. And we loyal to the death. And with this be over my heart, I pledge my life to this hood. And the only way to leave this hood is if it's granted by the hood. We dead game. Mr. Adams, do you recognize what this is? Yes. What is it? It's oath. I'm sorry, would you mind if we zoom in on that section again? Thanks, Miss Harney. Do you see where it says, death to all those who go against the set? Yes. What does that mean? Exactly what it says. Well, you use the term set. What does set mean? What's a set? That's Bloodhound Brim. Can you give an example of a different set? Well, low rider Brims, red side Brim. And this particular paragraph here, this oath, did this apply to the Bloodhound Brims or any other set? Bloodhound Brim. And do you see where it says, the only way out of this hood is if it's granted by this hood? Do you see that? Yes. First of all, what is a hood? It's a set, another word for a set. And what does that mean? What does that mean? I'm sorry. What does the only way out of this hood is if it's granted by this hood mean? Exactly what it says. The only way out is if it's granted. As far as you can remember, was anyone ever voluntarily granted permission to leave the gang? No. If we could look at the bottom of the page, Miss Harney, can you read what is written there, starting on the left? It says, 220 Bloodhound Brim. Blood, Bronx. 212, Greyhound, Harlem. Beagle, Queens. Bassett, Brooklyn. Coon, Staten Island. Double-breaded Hound, Westchester and Buffalo. Elk Hound, New Jersey. Afghan Hound, Long Island. Wolfhound, Delaware. Otter Hound, PA. Foxhound, Philly. Isby Hound, North Carolina. Salute Hound, Virginia. Buffalo Hound, Georgia. Whippet Hound, Jamaica. And Barzo Hound, Texas. Do you recognize what you just read? Yes. What is it? It's the pedigrees. I'd like to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 172. Do you recognize this exhibit? Yes. How do you recognize this? That was some of the lingo that Mitch gave me. So to be clear, who is Mitch again? Mitch was Hound. And when did Mitch give this to you? When he came to Brooklyn from MCC. He was on trial at MCC. Do you remember approximately what year that was? 2016. And what is MCC? It's a federal penitentiary in Manhattan. And do you recognize what this is? Yes. What is it? It's the 10 Hound Commandments and the 16 pedigrees. Did you write this paperwork? No. Is that your handwriting? No. What did you do with this paperwork? Gave it to my lawyer. Do you know what your lawyer did with it? Gave it to the government. The government offers Government 172. Any objection? No. No, Your Honor. Government Exhibit 172 is received. Miss Harney, if we publish 172? Mr. Adams, can you read at the top of the page the first 10 numbers there? No rats at all. No homo. No bust at all. No secrecy. No success. If a hound is shot, stabbed, or touched by anyone, we ride on them and the person close to them. No disrespecting the sister. Time come, I'll bust my gun. Growth and development is a must. Communication is a must. Hound business is hound business only. Looking at number 9, communication is a must. What does that mean? Staying in contact. Stay in contact with who? Usually the chain of command, or, and why is communication important? Because it's always good to know what's going on with everyone. And what about number 10? Hound business is hound business. Do you know what that means? Exactly what it says. Hound business is hound business. Versus what? Can you explain a little bit more about what that means? Well, there's a lot of other blood sets, and their business is not our business. Our business is not theirs. And number 3, no busters at all. What does that mean? Another word for punks. No punks. Number 5, if a hound is shot, stabbed, or touched by anyone, we ride on them and the person close to them. What does that mean? Exactly what it says. If a hound is touched, we touch them back, or somebody close to them. What do you mean by touched? Shot, stabbed, beat up, anything. What does we ride on them mean? It's another word for we retaliate. We can take this down. Thanks. Mr. Adams, what is the relationship between 5'9" Brim and Bloodhound Brims? 5'9" Brim was the first Brim hood. They all Brim. They all formed the NYBBA. What is the NYBBA? New York Blood Brim Army. How did you learn about the NYBBA? I was a high-ranking member of the Bloodhound Brim, and I was Brim. And what is the NYBBA? This is a banner. It's a banner that all of the 9 Brim hoods fall under. You said the 9 Brim hoods. Can you give some examples of the 9 Brim hoods? Bloodhound Brim, 5'9" Brim, Lowrider Brim, Hit Squad Brim, Red Side Brim. Sometimes they change. One goes up, one comes down. Can you think of all of them as you sit here today? No. How is the NYBBA run? It's a committee, GF from each hood. And what sorts of decisions does the NYBBA make? What hoods go up? What hoods come down? When you say go up and come down, what do you mean? One hood stays under the banner and one hood is no longer under the banner. If a hood is no longer under the banner, what does that mean? It means it's faded. What does it mean for a hood to be faded? Either you switch your hood or you get shot. Who switches their hood? Whoever is under the hood that's faded, that's no more. Based on your understanding of the NYBBA, would you be allowed to found a set of a Brim hood without the approval of the NYBBA? No. Objection. Sustained. At the time that the Bloodhound Brims was founded, to your understanding, was the Bloodhound Brims a part of the NYBBA? No. Why wasn't the Brim able to found the Bloodhound Brims without the NYBBA? Objection. 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 Sustained. Was the Bloodhound Brims ever a part of the NYBBA? Yes. How did the Bloodhound Brims become a part of the NYBBA? Objection. Objection. Sustained. No foundation. Did you at any point learn whether the Bloodhound Brims was a part of the NYBBA? Objection. Overruled. Yes. How did you learn that? Because once it was sanctioned, it goes up under the banner. How did you learn that it had been sanctioned? Like I said, I was a member, so it was my job to know what was going on with the hood. Did anyone tell you that it had been sanctioned? No, not nobody. Not nobody per se. But when we got the paperwork and it came out, on the paperwork it said that it was sanctioned February 20th. April 26, 2006. Did you at any point learn how it had come to be sanctioned? Yes. How did you learn that? We basically bullied our way in. I'm sorry? How did you learn that it had been sanctioned? Because I took part in it. And when you say bullied your way in, what do you mean? We didn't take no for an answer. That was the whole point of having a bunch of shooters. I want to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 902. Do you recognize this exhibit? Yes. How do you recognize it? It's basically the NYBBA and Hound and all of the pedigrees under it, or some of the pedigrees under it. Have you seen this exhibit before? Yes. Did you help create this exhibit? Yes. Have you reviewed it for accuracy? Yes. Is it an accurate reflection of the NYBBA and the relationship to the Bloodhound Brims and the pedigrees? Yes. The government offers 902. Any objection? Just a moment, Your Honor. If I could have a moment, Your Honor. Your Honor, we object. Could we have a sidebar? The government offers Exhibit 902. 902 is received. Ms. Harney, can we publish 902? Mr. Adams, can you just read what's written in the orange on top? New York Blood Brim Army, NYBBA, 9 Brim hoods. And does this chart show all the 9 Brim hoods? No. Which Brim hood does it show? Bloodhound Brim. And in the blue on the bottom, what is that? Some of the pedigrees. Is it an accurate reflection of the pedigrees based on your knowledge? Yes. All right, Ms. Harney, you can take that down. Mr. Adams, I'd like to focus on when you were in state prison from 2005 until 2011. Do you recall testifying that you were incarcerated in many different state prisons during that time? Yes. When you arrived at a new prison, how would you learn who was a hound? We would come on the locked-in quarters. We would say whoopty. What is whoopty? It's a hound salute. I'm sorry, can you say that again? I didn't hear. It's a hound salute. And when you yell whoopty, what were you expecting? Someone to say he recognized the hound whistle. And what did that mean if you heard that? That means there's other hounds around. What were some of the hound salutes? Dead game. Respond, never stop. I'm sorry. Dead game. You will respond, I never stop. If looks could kill, you will respond, how style my body. That's just the way hound style. Hound people. That's just the way we talk. It's just the way we walk. And just to be clear, is that a sort of call or response? Yeah. In your experience, are prisoners who are located in different states from each other able to call each other on the phone directly from the prison? No. In your experience, are prisoners allowed to call anyone they want? No, you got a phone list. What was on the phone list? It's the numbers that you put on your phone list. If you wanted to call someone who was not on your phone list, how would you do that? By calling someone who's on your phone list and having them do a three-way? And when you say three-way, what do you mean? Like a conference call. In your experience, are prisoners allowed to send mail directly to each other? No. So how would members of the gang communicate across different jails? Objection. Sustained. In your experience, were members of the gang able to communicate across different jails? Objection. Sustained. Can we stick with what he did or what he knows directly? Yes, Your Honor. Were you able to communicate across different jails to a different hound? Yes. How were you able to do that? Third party, or we had a P.O. box. When you said third party, what do you mean? I would send a letter to one of my family members and they would send it to the person I'm trying to send it to. Or we had a P.O. box and we would send it to the P.O. box, and whoever was designated to deal with the P.O. box would send it to the person it was going to. Did that have any name, what you just described? Yeah, it's called boomeranging the kite. If you wanted to send a letter to someone in prison, what identifying information would you need to include on the letter? We would need to know your DIN number. What's a DIN number? It's the inmate number. And you mentioned a P.O. box. Who was in charge of the P.O. box? Oh, at the time when we had a P.O. box, it was Showtime. Who is Showtime? Showtime is Hound. What was Showtime's position in the gang? He was the acting GF on the streets. When was Showtime the acting GF on the streets? Oh, at the time I was in prison to around 2010, when 10,000 became the acting GF. What was your understanding of what Showtime would do with the letters he received at the P.O. box? Objection. Sustained. When you were in state prison from 2005 until 2011, did you stay in communication with Brim? Yes. How did you stay in communication with Brim? I would use the P.O. box in the beginning. Then later on down the line, I used to send it to my family and have them send it. How often did you receive any kites from Brim? Yes. How often did you receive kites from Brim? He didn't write that much. And did you send kites to Brim? Yes. How often did you send kites to Brim? At least once a month, sometimes a little longer. What kinds of messages did you send to Brim? To ask him basically what was going on with hounds, to have a lineup change, if there was anything that I needed to know about the NYBVA or who was in play, who wasn't in play, things of that nature. Why was it important to you to send kites like that? Number one, communication was a must, and I needed to know what was going on. Why did you need to know what was going on? Because I was a high-ranking member, and usually if there's a plate around, you can't be around it. Why can't you be around someone who is a plate? Because you become a plate. Did you at any point learn Brim's DIN number? Yes. Do you remember what it is? Yes. Go ahead. 0086415. You recall testifying that you went from being a soldier to having rank in the gang because you put in work. Yes. What work did you put in as part of the Bloodhound Brims? I cut somebody, and I had somebody cut. When you say cut, can you describe what you mean? Took a scalpel, and I cut somebody in the face. How many cuttings did you personally commit? 1. Who did you cut? AK. Who is AK? AK He was a Brim. Was he a bloodhound Brim? No. Do you remember what set AK was? He was Outlaw 20 Brim. When did this cutting take place? In Comstock. And when? In 2005. Again, Comstock is what? It's a state correctional facility. What led you to cut AK? Well, in the kite that Geronimo had received, it said that AK had fumbled a plate and he was no good. Is this the same kite you had testified about earlier? Yes. And who wrote that kite? La. What does it mean that AK had fumbled a plate and he was no good? He got an order to do something and he ain't do it. What did it mean that AK was no good? He was a plate. Why did that message from La Brim lead you to cut AK? Because I was under that hood, and I was the only one who was on the lock-in quarters with AK. By lock-in quarters, what do you mean? Where we lived at in the cells. Can you describe how that cutting took place? We was standing in the yard under the gun tower. I asked him what was going on. He started talking. I cut him in his face. What did you cut him with? A scalpel. Were you caught by the guards? No. What was your understanding of the goal of cutting someone in prison? It leaves a mark. It's like a sticker. It lets everybody else know something wrong there. Do you have an understanding of what it means in this context to take an autograph? Yeah. What is that? It's to cut somebody. Leave your signature. I want to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 40. I have a question. So you told us that AK was in a different Brim group, right? You said he was in Outlaw 20 Brim? Correct. So are you telling us that he was subject to discipline by you even though he wasn't a Bloodhound Brim himself? Correct. He's still Brim. All right. Go ahead. Do you recognize this photo, Government Exhibit 40? Yes. How do you recognize it? That's AK. The government offers Government Exhibit 40. No objection. No objection. Government Exhibit 40 is received. Do you have a nameplate or whatever for him? We don't, Your Honor. Okay. Go ahead. Mr. Adams, can you see in this photograph where you cut AK? Yes. Where is that? On the left side. Left side of what? To my left side. On the right side of his face. Can we activate the touchscreen ability on this? Thank you. Mr. Adams, can you take your finger and just trace where you think you see where you cut him? Did you see AK again after you caught him? Yes. Twice. And when was that? The first time he walked by my cell, we was in Comstock. The second time in Auburn in 2007. When you got to Auburn, how did you learn that AK was there? La told me that I had abandoned in the jail. I'm sorry, can you say again what La said? That I had a bandit in the jail. Where was La when he told you this? La was walking past the channel. So La was at Auburn? Yes. Did you have an understanding of what La meant by bandit? Yeah, enemy. And after La told you that you had a bandit in the jail, did you have any further discussions with La about that bandit? Yeah. What was said? Well, I wanted to know why he was allowed to still live in the jail after I cut him. I was told that La and Mel Cross would talk about it because AK was under the Outlaw 20 and Mel Cross was a GF for the Outlaw 20 and that they would come to the conclusion of what would happen between me and him. Just to be clear, who said all of this to you? La told me that. And what exactly did La say? He said that he would speak to Mel Cross and they would decide what would happen between me and AK. Who is Mel Cross? Mel Cross was the GF for the Outlaw 20 Brim. And do you have an understanding of why La Brim said he was going to talk to Mel Cross? Because Mel Cross was in the jail, and if I would have just did something to AK, it would start a war amongst us. And again, what set was AK in? Outlaw 20. Did you come to speak to La Brim again about AK? Yes. How did that conversation go? He told me that me and AK was going to shoot the 5-9 and nobody else would get involved, that I knew what to do. What does shoot the 5-9 mean? Fight, one-on-one. I'm sorry, say it again? To fight, one-on-one. What else did La say? I knew what to do. Did you have an understanding of what La meant when he said to you that you knew what to do? Yes. What was that? Cut him again. Did you end up having a confrontation with AK? Yes. What happened? He was sitting in the yard playing cards, and he seen me first. He rushed me. We had a fight in the middle of the yard. Did you cut AK? No. Why not? He seen me first. Now you mentioned that you also ordered cuttings. Is that correct? Yes. How many cuttings did you order? 1. Who did you order cut? Dynamo. Who is Dynamo? Dynamo was the GF at East Homicide, Brim. And what is East Homicide, Brim? It was a Brim set. And what led you to order that Dynamo should be cut? Because La sent me a kite telling me that Dynamo was no good and the Bentley was on the shelf. So who sent you that kite? La. And what did the kite say? That Dynamo was no good and the Bentley was on the shelf? All right, let's take the second half of that. Did you have an understanding of what La Brim meant when he wrote that the Bentley was on the shelf? East Homicide Brim was faded. What is a Bentley? It was another way to identify East Homicide Brim. And what does on the shelf mean? It was no more. It was parked. It was done. And you said that meant that... I'm sorry. So what does a Bentley on the shelf mean? It means that East Homicide Brim was faded. It was no more. And what else did La Brim say in the kite? He said that Dynamo was no good. Do you have an understanding of what La Brim meant when he said that Dynamo was no good? Yes. What was that? He had to be shot. What does shot mean in this context? Cut. Where did this cutting take place? It took place on the channel in C Block. Where? On the channel in C Block. I'm sorry, which prison? Auburn. And when was this? 2010. Were you and La Brim in the same place at the same time? No. Who did you order to cut Dynamo? The Hound Gritty. Who is Gritty? Gritty was a one-star general. Why did you order Gritty to cut Dynamo instead of doing the cutting yourself? Because Gritty was a one-star general and Dynamo was we consider him a vet. Couldn't just set anybody at him. Had to be somebody who knew what they was doing. When you say Dynamo was a vet, what do you mean? He'd been in blood for a lot of years. Did Gritty cut Dynamo? Yes. Were you able to observe what happened? Yes. Where were you? I was in my cell. And what happened? They was walking past the channel. Gritty went behind him. He cut him from the back. And the other hound that was with Gritty, when Dynamo turned around, he tried to cut Gritty back. And the other hound that was with Gritty, he swung on Dynamo and they all started fighting. I want to show you what's marked Government 33. Do you recognize this? Yes. Who is it? It's Dynamo. The government offers Government 33. No objection. No objection. Government Exhibit 33 is received. Can you see in this photograph where Dynamo was cut? Yes. Can you point out where that is? I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Why did you agree to cut AK and to order that Dynamo should be cut for La Brim? Because that's what I got ordered to do. Did you have an understanding of what would happen if you had refused to do that? Yeah. What? I would become a plate. Did you personally benefit from doing these cuttings? Yes. How? Reputation. And I moved up in the ladder on the chain of command. Why did you want a higher position on the chain of command? Because I got tired of taking all this. When you were in state prison, did you ever pass along messages about cuttings? Numerous. What other crimes were Bloodhound Brim members committing in prisons? Drugs. Objection. Sustained. Were Bloodhound Brim members committing other crimes in prison? Objection. Sustained. No foundation. Did you ever observe or hear of anyone in the Bloodhound Brims committing crimes in prison apart from cutting? Objection to the form. Sustained. Did you ever see drugs in prison? Yeah. When did you see drugs in prison? Objection, irrelevancy in general. Can you? Well, sure. Focusing on when you were in state prison, an all-Brim correctional facility. What year was that? I was there twice, 2007 and 2010. And focusing on 2007, at that time, did you see any drugs in prison? Objection, irrelevancy. Overruled. Yes. What did you see? Who did you see with drugs? Objection. I assume this is going to be relevant? Yes, Your Honor. Overruled. Who did you see with drugs? La had drugs. A lot of members of Blood had drugs. Did you see La Brim with marijuana in prison? Yeah. Did you see La Brim doing anything with the marijuana? Yeah, smoking it. He used to give it to us. He used to give it to some of the hounds that didn't have food or things like that. They would use it to get food. Did you at any point learn where La Brim was getting the drugs he was distributing in prison? On the visits. How did you learn that? I mean, he used to say that Showtime was setting a bag up. It's like saying he was bringing drugs. Who would say that? La. And who is Showtime again? Showtime is the acting GF. Did La Brim ever tell you about anyone else who was providing drugs? Nikki. Did you at any point learn what La Brim was receiving in exchange for drugs? I mean, cigarettes, commissary. Some people would send pink slips out. Commissary. What is commissary? It's things you buy for the store and the jail, like basically food, cigarettes, stuff of that nature. And you say people would send pink slips out? Yeah, sent money out of their account. What account are you talking about? The inmate account. What would be in your inmate account? Whatever money you might have. Money from your family, money from however you get money. Have you ever sent a pink slip out? No. So are you saying that one prisoner can transfer money to another prisoner? Is that what you're saying? No. Who would the pink slips go to? It would go to family in the street, or if you ordering stuff out of catalogs, things like that. And what do the pink slips request? It's a receipt. It's basically, you fill it out. It goes to the inmate records. They send the money out of your account, and they send you back the pink slip. Do you recall testifying earlier about kitty dues? Yes. Can you remind the jury quickly what are kitty dues? Basically, it's membership fees. Would members of the gang who are in prison receive kitty dues? I mean, La would. How did you know that? Because there was times when he was in jail and I was in the street, and we would collect kitty to send. What would happen if someone did not pay kitty dues in the Bloodhound Brims? You're fined. Fined how? You gotta pay more. If they still refused to pay or couldn't pay, what would happen? Objection. Sustained. Did you ever hear of a hound who couldn't pay their kitty dues? Objection. Objection. Sustained. Mr. Adams, when were you released from state prison? 2001, August 3rd. How long were you out of prison before you were incarcerated again? 15 months. Just before you were released from state prison in 2011, what was your position in the gang? I was a low 020. What happened to your rank when you were released from prison? It went up. I became a high 020 for the Greyhound. How did that change of rank come about? La. Can you explain how you learned about it? At the time before I left prison, he sent me a letter telling me when I got home to get in contact with Nikki and Kickdoor. When I got home, I got in contact with Nikki and Kickdoor. She told me that I had moved up to the high for the Greyhounds. And again, who are Nikki and Kickdoor? They was the GMs. When you were released in 2011, where were you living in New York? In Harlem. And after you got out of prison, when was the next time that you saw La Brim in person? He came home like approximately a month or two right after me. Where were you when you next saw him? I was in Harlem. And how did you come to see him? He came to see me. It was him, Nikki, and Kickdoor. What happened when you saw La Brim? Nothing. We talked a little while. He told me that he was home. We ended up going down the block to see another hound named Todd. Spoke with him for a little while. I gave him some money. He went about his business. How much money did you give him? It was a couple dollars. It wasn't a lot. When you say a couple dollars, what do you mean? Does that mean $2? No, a little more, like $100. Why did you give him money? He just came home. When you were out of prison from 2011 until about 15 months later, how frequently did you see Brim? I seen him a lot. Every powwow we had, I used to pull up on him wherever he was at sometimes, or he would come. He would come to the Greyhound sometime. Who would attend powwows? It depends on which one it was. A universal powwow or a pedigree powwow. For the pedigree, it was just the people that's under that pedigree. And universal powwow was for all the pedigrees. How many powwows have you personally attended? A lot. Who was responsible for organizing the powwows? The GM. And how would the GM organize the powwows? She would send us text messages telling us where the powwow was at. Where were powwows typically held? In parks, Allertown Park, the park on McCombs, lots of big places. What sorts of things would happen in powwows? Collect. Objection. Overruled. He said he's attended a lot. He can testify what happened. We would. Go ahead. We would collect kitty dues. We would talk about who we had problems with. We would talk about the structure, who was on the lineups, who was plates. Basically, that's it. Who would run the powwows? La. When was the first powwow that you attended after you were released from state jail? Like a month after I came home, we had a universal powwow. Where was it? In Allerton Park. Who was there? Numerous people. La was there. Light was there. Don P was there. I was there. My brothers. I guess 2. BX. A lot of people. Everybody from all the pedigrees. Who ran the powwow? Can you estimate how many people attended? About 100 people. Who ran the powwow? La. And what happened at the powwow? Like I said, we basically spoke about what was going on with Bloodhound Brims. We was notified that Showtime had sent 1,000 plates. Kitty dues was collected. That's basically it. Who said that Showtime and 10,000 were plates? La. Can you remind the jury who was 10,000? 10,000 was the acting GF for the Bloodhound Brims, like 2010. And Showtime? Showtime was also the acting GF. Who was the acting GF first? Showtime. Who made Showtime a plate? Brim. Objection. Overruled. I'm sorry, can you answer the question again? La. Did you at any point learn why Brim made Showtime a plate? It was something over a female or something to do with a baby. Showtime had La thinking the baby was his when it wasn't. And Showtime wanted to kill when he came home. How did you learn all that? From 10,000. Why was 10,000 a plate? Because he didn't want to kill Showtime. Have you ever met Showtime in person? No. Do you know what he looks like? No. Did there come a time when you met someone named Showtime? Yes. How many? When in relation to the powwow you just mentioned, did you meet this person named Showtime? Couple weeks later. Where were you? I was in the Bronx. I was living on Bronx Park South. And what were you doing at the time there? I was living there, and there was a party. We was having a party inside the courtyard. Who was at the party? It was me, my brother, a couple other hounds, Puff, and a little later the guy Showtime came. I want to show you what's marked Government Exhibit 204. Do you recognize this photo? Yes. How do you recognize it? That's Bronx Park South. That's the courtyard we was in. The government offers 204. Any objection? No, Your Honor. No. 204 is received. Looking at this photograph, can you see, from this photograph, where the party was? I mean, you can't really see exactly where it's at, but you can see the building. And can you describe again where, in relation to these buildings, the party was? Inside, in the middle, inside the courtyard. What happened when you were at the party? We were shooting dice and the kid Showtime had came over there. He started saluting everybody. He said his name was Showtime. He was a Brim hood. I don't remember what Brim hood he said he was. Me and Puff stepped to the side and we called La. Why did you and Puff call La? Because when he said his name was Showtime, neither one of us knew what Showtime looked like. We thought he was the Showtime we was looking for. Why were you looking for Showtime? Because he was a plate. Who called La? Puff did, off his phone. Did La answer? Yes. Were you able to overhear the conversation? Yes, it was on speaker. What did La say? He asked us, what did he look like? We explained what he looked like. He said, hold on, I'll call you back. And then what happened? He called back about 5 minutes later, and he said to bring the kid to the front of the courtyard. What did you do? We walked him to the front of the courtyard, up to by the sidewalk. And can you see where you walked Showtime in this photograph, Government 204? Yes. Where is that? By the red car, up towards the sidewalk. And who walked with the kid named Showtime? It was me and Puff. What happened when you got to the front of the building? It was a little hound that I seen around a couple times. He was from Honeywell. He rolled by on a bike to the corner. He got to the corner. He rolled back up to the top of the other by the mailbox, and he sat there. And then a van pulled up with Light and someone else in it. Who was driving the van? Light. Who else was in the van? I seen the kid around, but I don't know. Had you seen that van before? Yeah. What happened when Light and the other person pulled up? The kid put the shotgun out the window, and Light got out the car, walked around. He looked at him, and he went back around the front of the car and got in, and drove off. You said the kid pulled out a shotgun? Who were you talking about? The kid that was in the passenger seat. And where was the shotgun pointed? At his face, like 2 inches away. Whose face? Showtime. And what did Light do? He walked around. He came from the driver's side. He walked around the back of the van. He looked at him. He didn't say nothing. He got back in the car and drove off. Do you have an understanding of why Light showed up with the gun? Objection. Objection. Sustained. Your Honor, now might be a good spot to end for the day. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're at 2:30, so we're going to break for the day and break for the weekend.